Hello, I'm glad you can join me for this time of Bible study. I want to start off by inviting you to worship with us at the Bearden Church of Christ. We're at 745 Cedar Street in Bearden, Arkansas. We meet at 10 o'clock Sunday morning for Bible study. We meet at 11 a.m. and 5 p.m. for worship services. And on Wednesday nights, we meet at 6:30 for midweek Bible study. I hope you can come be a part of that with us. We serve a very powerful God. And we serve a God that we need to keep faith in because sometimes in this life, when things are going badly for us, is when God can work them out for the most good for us and for others. And we need to keep that in mind. And we have an example of that in the Bible. We have several examples of that. But the example we want to look at today is the life of Joseph. We read in Romans 8, verse 28. That we know that all things work together for good to those who love God, to those who are the called according to his purpose. And that doesn't mean things always work out for our convenience, for our ease, and it doesn't mean that things work out for our comfort. But it does mean that God can take the bad things and work them out for the good. And like I said, Joseph is an example of that. In Genesis chapter 37, he's sold into slavery by his brothers. Certainly not a good thing. The hatred involved in them having to do that had to be mind blowing. But yet, the good of it is, even during that bad situation, the Lord's with Joseph. And Joseph is sold to a man named Potiphar. Potiphar is an officer in Pharaoh's court down in Egypt. And he gained the trust of Potiphar because Potiphar could see that Joseph was indeed blessed. And so he made Joseph the overseer of his house. And with Joseph as the overseer of his house, Potiphar prospered. And everything went well with him because since Joseph was blessed, Potiphar was then blessed because of his association with Joseph. But then things went sour. Potiphar was married to a bad woman. She was an evil woman. And in Genesis 39, she tried to get Joseph to lie with her, but he refused to do so. And we see his attitude in chapter 39, verse 9, where when she's trying to get him to be with her, he replies and he says, "There is no one greater in the house than I, nor has he kept back anything from me but you, because you are his wife. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God?" So not only, and we see something beautiful here in Joseph's reply. Not only does he realize it would be a sin against Potiphar for him to have a relationship with his wife, but he sees it as it would be a sin against God. And I think so many times in life we don't think about it, but all sin is a sin against God. And so Potiphar's wife tempted him day after day after day. Matter of fact, I've read where secular historians have said she'd go so far as to take off her clothes and throw them over the eyes of the idols that were around her house and tell Joseph, "You can go ahead because God can't see." Well, Joseph knew better. He knew that she worshipped idols, but he worshipped the true and living God that could see and does see all. Not only does he see all that we do physically, but he sees our heart. He knows our heart's intent. And so Joseph kept refusing her, but eventually she lied on him and told that Joseph had come unto her. And this resulted in Joseph being stripped of his position and cast into prison. So things have gone bad again, but God has a way of turning them into good. And so he's still with Joseph as he goes into prison, and he finds favor in the eyes of the jailkeeper. And he's eventually put in charge of the prisoners. And from there it gets even better, because in chapter 40, the imprisoned chief butler and the imprisoned chief baker both have dreams that Joseph interprets for them. And he tells the baker that in 3 days he will be hanged, but for the butler, in 3 days he'll be returned to his position. And so he asked the butler to speak kindly to Pharaoh for him, that way he could be released, because after all, Joseph is in prison for a crime he did not commit. But we go back to the bad again. The butler is a very self-serving person who, when he is returned to his position, does he go and tell Pharaoh as he said that he would? No, he does not. For 2 years, he does not say a word to Pharaoh about Joseph, and Joseph sits in prison during that whole time. But things do eventually turn for good, because the Pharaoh has some dreams that he cannot understand, and they're bothering him. And at this time, when it serves his interest, the butler finally mentions Joseph to the Pharaoh. So Pharaoh has Joseph called out from the prison. He comes before Pharaoh. Pharaoh relates his dreams, and Joseph gives the interpretation of those dreams. And the interpretation being that Egypt would have 7 years of plenty, followed by 7 years of famine. And so Joseph eventually is made second in charge in Egypt, right beneath the Pharaoh, and he's the one that's put in charge of making sure that Egypt is prepared for the 7 years of famine. So he has it to where Egypt stores back a portion of their food each year so that they'll have food when the famine strikes. And so now Egypt has food, but Canaan, the same land where his evil brothers that sold him into slavery live, are lacking in food, and so his brothers come down from Canaan to buy food. Joseph recognizes them, but they do not recognize him. And so anyway, the story of Joseph is one worth reading for yourself. And there's a lot more to it than this, but for time's sake, I'll cut the story short. They get the food from Joseph, they go home, they come back for more food, and when they come back, at that time, Joseph reveals himself to them, and he tells them to return home, to get their father and all their families, and move back to Egypt and to live in the land of Goshen, and that way he could provide for them. And here's the beautiful attitude that Joseph had at this time. We read in Genesis 50, verses 19 through 21. He told his brethren after the death of their father Jacob, when they were fearful that now he might exact revenge on them, he told them, "Do not be afraid. For am I in the place of God? But as for you, you meant evil against me. But God meant it for good, in order to bring about as it is this day, to save many people alive. Now therefore do not be afraid. I will provide for you and your little ones." And he comforted them and spoke kindly to them. You see the beautiful attitude of Joseph in that he forgave the very ones who had so wronged him, because all the bad things that he went through put him in a position to do good for them and for others. Joseph's attitude kind of makes me think of Jesus Christ himself, who on the cross prayed for the very forgiveness of the ones who were crucifying him. Let us have that attitude of forgiveness, and let us have the faith in God that even when we are going through bad times, that He has a plan for us to make them into something good. I thank you for watching today. I hope you'll continue to watch as we have these devotionals. I hope they're uplifting to you. I hope they're challenging to you. But I hope they're beneficial to you. Thank you for watching. Have a great day, everybody. Goodbye, and God bless.